Hi there, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is. As always, happy whatever day it is. Welcome to Left Side of the Aisle. I'm your host, my name is Larry Erickson, and for the next half hour I'm going to be ranting away at stuff that I think is worthy of you hearing, and maybe even doing something about. If you have any reactions to the show, send it to me directly. My personal email is whoviating, WHOVIATING at AOL.com. Or you can go to my website, which is called Lotus Surviving a Dark Time, and the URL will be over here somewhere a few times during the show. You can leave a comment there, get the email address there. If you do send me email to request, one, include something in the subject line, make it clear this is not spam, say, it's about your cable show or something like that, and be a little patient about getting an answer, because I am really, really bad about answering my email. So, with that stuff out of the way, we're going to get started. Now, I'm going to start with something. I'm going to go on about this at considerable length this week, because I kind of hope to then be able to not address this until there's some actual new development in the matter. But Kim Davis has been set free because Judge David Bunning, who jailed her for contempt, said he's satisfied that in her absence, the assistant county clerks were issuing marriage licenses to all qualified couples, including same-sex ones. Now, he did this, I think, mistakenly, without getting any sort of promise from her that she would not interfere with those assistant clerks continuing to issue such licenses. He did warn her against doing it, but she's already said that she would not allow any such marriages to come out of her office. So I don't expect her to follow the law any more now than she did before, which means I think that in fairly short order we're going to be right back here again. Anyway, she was freed. She was freed to the cheers of a throng of supporters crying amen and praise Jesus, with Eye of the Tiger blaring from the PA. Which, when you come down to it, is the real issue here. Not Eye of the Tiger, but her supporters, because that is the real issue that needs to be addressed, needs to be discussed. Kim Davis is not the issue. Kim Davis is merely the current focus of the issue. She's not the real issue. She's one person. She's just one person. One person was now being turned into a symbol, the poster child for anti-gay bigotry, and don't let anybody tell you that that is not what is involved here. Presidential candidate Mike Huckleberry Hound was at the rally when Davis was released, and he said, and I'm quoting him here, "We don't gather here because we hate anybody. We gather here today because we love God in this country, and we do not want to see this country become the smoldering remains of a great republic." And what is it that would turn this country into mere smoldering remains? By all appearances, it is not being allowed to discriminate against LGBT people. So Kim Davis herself is not the issue, but I do have to say some things about Kim Davis. I do have some things I do want to say. I can accept that Kim Davis really does believe what she says about same-sex marriage, even though I think she is hopelessly, incredibly, morally and ethically and legally wrong. I can accept that she does believe it. Although I'm interested in what her thoughts were before her conversion experience, which she says was about 4 years ago. And speaking of which, I mentioned last week, I was among those who mentioned that she is currently on husband number 4, although it's actually husband number 3 in a way. She married one, then she married the second one, then she married the third one, then she married the second one again. And she did have a pair of twins who were conceived in an extramarital affair while she was married to her first husband. But she can say, and she has said, that she has been forgiven for that. That was part of her conversion experience. She's been forgiven. She knows all that was wrong, but she doesn't do that anymore. She's a changed person. God, Jesus, has opened her eyes, or whatever. So while I think it is relevant to note that because it is context, it is part of the history. It shouldn't be a focus. We shouldn't pay a lot of energy on this. But again, what I do wish, though, somebody would ask her is what her feelings about same-sex marriage were before her conversion experience. Because I would be willing to bet that if she was asked that and answered it honestly, that she would say that she was against same-sex marriage before this, which would mean that the Bible is not the cause of her views, it's the excuse for them. Now, obviously, I don't know that for certain. Obviously, I don't know that for certain. But it would. I'm pretty sure of it because it's actually a fairly common thing when people have these conversion experiences that a lot of their fundamental beliefs about social and ethical and political issues, they don't actually change, or not significantly. People who were very tolerant about things like, for example, same-sex marriage don't suddenly become intolerant of it as a result of this. Or people who are intolerant of some things don't suddenly become tolerant of them because of this. The context in which they hold those views has changed, but the views themselves tend to not change that much. So I think it would not surprise me in the least if she, in fact, has been against same-sex marriage all along. But leaving that aside, I can believe that with the passion of the newly converted, that Kim Davis is sincere in her stated belief that this is all about God's authority. I can believe that she regards this as a matter of conscience. I believe in the power and the dignity of the human conscience, and I believe in the inviolability of the human conscience. And so I can respect, I can even admire her willingness to go to jail for what she believes in. Her willingness to go to jail in order to not do something that she believes is against her conscience. What I can't accept is her insistence that she should be able to continue being a county clerk. That she should get exactly what those of her ilk are always accusing same-sex couples of wanting: special treatment, special rights. Which, of course, same-sex couples are not after. They're after equal rights. But special treatment is exactly what she's seeking. I mean, look, your conscience says you can't do your job. No, I understand. Probably more than you realize, because I actually have quit a job over a matter of conscience. Which is, frankly, exactly what she should do. You can't do the job, you quit and you do something else. But no, not Kim Davis. Not according to her, not according to her lawyers, not according to her supporters. No, she gets to keep the job, just all the rest of us have to change in order to fit her. That's what she and her lawyers are demanding. Special exemptions carved out for her convenience. Special treatment for her so she can continue to deny equal treatment to others. The Reverend Emily Heath of the United Church of Christ had a good response to this. She recently wrote about her own decision not to apply for a job as a chaplain in the federal prison system because of her opposition to the death penalty, and she felt she could not work in a system that had that option. She said, and I'm quoting her here, religious liberty is guaranteed in this country, but that does not mean that every job needs to bend to your particular interpretation of your faith. If you really believe that doing your job is violating your faith, then stepping aside would be a small price to pay for love of the gospel. But apparently, quitting her $80,000 a year job is too big a price for Kim Davis. You want more proof of the hypocrisy that's involved here? Her lawyers have gone to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, gone to the same federal court system whose orders she has persistently and insistently refused to carry out, that she has repeatedly defied. They've gone to that same federal court system demanding that it order Kentucky Governor Steve Beshear to let Davis refuse to issue same-sex marriage licenses. Oh, on the other hand, though, I have to add that maybe, just maybe, it's not actually hypocrisy. Maybe it's something else. After Kim Davis was jailed, her husband Joe emerged to say, "They have illegally put my wife in jail, so we're going to ask Beshear to do his job or step down." The lack of self-awareness is truly astounding. Now, her supporters have made comparisons between her and Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. And I've got to say, are they kidding, or are they just nitwits? I said before, noting that these people are not famed for their senses of humor. Rosa Parks was a private citizen defying what she knew to be the law for the purpose of challenging it for the benefit of an entire community. Kim Davis is a public official charged with following the law who wants an exemption from her duties just for herself. As John Culhane put it at Politico, Kim Davis is Rosa Parks' bus driver. I mean, the comparisons to Dr. King are, if anything, even more absurd. Not only was King, like Parks and unlike Davis, acting on behalf of the many, but if Kim Davis feels a conflict between her conscience and the law and her duties, she is free to stop being a county clerk. When black Americans experience a conflict between the law or policies and their conscience, between those and their dignity as human beings, they're not free to stop being black. But all this ultimately brings us back around to what I said was the real issue. Not Davis, but her supporters. Because like the man in the play said, ignorance and fanaticism are forever hungry and need feeding. And right now, Kim Davis is the caterer of the moment. Because with all their praise Jesuses and all their woo-hooing of Davis's invocation of God's authority, these people are emblematic of the fact that there are those, too many of those, there are those who hold that members of government in their official duty must be allowed to carry them out in accordance with their personal understanding of the Bible. That is what the shouted amens of the Bible thumpers amount to, is a declaration that the Bible overrules civil law. Which, if it's not a definition of a theocracy, I can't imagine what would be. But wait, we're told, no, that's wrong. It's the other way around. It's about religious freedom. You're oppressing our religious freedom. Well, Reverend Heath had a good response to that particular nonsense, quoting her again. When someone is being asked to follow the law and issue a marriage license, and they say they're being persecuted, I just don't buy it. You are no more being persecuted than I was when I decided not to be a prison chaplain. If you really believe doing your job is against your faith, then quitting it would be an act of faith. Define the law so two people you never see again can't get married? Not so much. Now, unfortunately, there are those, not many, but even a handful is too many. There are those in government who do hold that expecting to live up to their oath of office is somehow religious persecution from which they should be freed by being able to decide which parts of that oath they're going to follow and which they aren't. Just for a few examples, in Oregon, in the wake of a May 2014 federal court ruling that legalized same-sex marriage in that state, Marion County Judge Vance Day instructed his staff to refer same-sex couples seeking marriages, to go to another judge. And then apparently being able to avoid a charge of discrimination, even though discriminating was exactly what he was doing, he stopped performing weddings altogether. Two other clerks in Kentucky, Casey Davis, no relation, who is in Casey County, and Kay Schwartz in Whitley County, are also refusing to issue licenses to same-sex couples based on the same religious freedom nonsense. You haven't heard about them because there have been no suits filed against them, so that just hasn't come up yet. And last month, as another example, the Ohio Supreme Court's Board of Professional Conduct found it necessary to say that judges cannot refuse to marry same-sex couples on personal, moral, or religious grounds. That is, they can't refuse to do their jobs. The very fact that they had to say it shows just how deep is the discrimination among some, the determination among some, to refuse to face the reality of social change. Because that's what this actually is. This is a refusal to face the reality of change. We knew, or at least we damn well should have known, that the victory on same-sex marriage at the Supreme Court would not be the end of the issue, that the dead-enders would continue to throw up as many roadblocks as they could, and they are doing just that. There is still a fight to be fought on same-sex marriage and even more on the broader question of LGBTQ rights. But at the same time, let's keep in mind and take heart from the fact that in most places in this country, same-sex couples can get married without problems. That most of those judges and magistrates and county clerks and whatever who do disapprove of same-sex marriage are saying, my job is to uphold the law, so I will. And most of all, take heart from the fact that the reason Kim Davis is such big news is precisely because she is the exception. Justice is coming, justice will come, and we are taking a break. And here we are back again. Next up, just some little thing that we do once in a while around here. It's called to laugh, not weep. The evidence is indisputable. Marijuana, or more precisely cannabis, is a beneficial plant with a wide range of proven and possible medical applications, including treatment of severe pain. There is no evidence to date that anyone has ever died from it. The evidence is also indisputable. Oxycontin and other opioid-based prescription drugs have a small range of uses, from pain management to cough relief. But the harmful side effects are numerous. They are highly addictive. They kill thousands of people a year and sicken tens of thousands more. Opioids do have a place in medicine as they're used to treat severe pain, but they're extremely dangerous. In the United States, 23 states and Washington, D.C. have legalized cannabis for medical use, but in only 5 of them can you actually get it. The others, it's almost impossible to get it legally. In the other 27 states, you can't get it legally at all. On the other hand, government agents will not kick down your door in the middle of the night, shoot your dog, and throw you in prison if you have doctor-prescribed Oxycontin, which is legal in all 50 states. Tens of thousands of children in this country suffer from epilepsy. Of those tens of thousands, only a very small handful have access to medical marijuana, which has shown some benefits in reducing seizures. But if you want your child to start a regime of opioid drugs, you can, because last month the Food and Drug Administration announced that it approved the use of Oxycontin for children as young as 11. Now, its use is to be highly regulated, but it still means that the federal government is allowing children as young as 11 to be given a highly addictive, dangerous drug while denying them even the opportunity to find out if a non-addictive, far, far safer alternative would do them any good. It is to laugh so that we don't weep. Next up, one of our regular weekly features. This is the Clown Award. And this week, the dishonor of the Big Red Nose goes to syndicated columnist and all-around goofball David Brooks. This Tuesday, September 8th, his column was about what he called 4 anti-party men who have seen their political stars rising of late. The 4 are Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump, Ben Carson, and in the United Kingdom, Jeremy Corbyn, who is the leading candidate for the post of leader of the Labour Party. All of them, he says, have little experience in the profession of governing. Now, I won't speak for Trump or Carson, but I will say that Bernie Sanders was mayor of Burlington, Vermont's largest city, for 8 years. He was a member of the U.S. House of Representatives for 16 years and was elected to the U.S. Senate in 2006, where he is now the ranking minority member on the Senate Budget Committee. Jeremy Corbyn, for his part, has been a member of the Parliament in the United Kingdom since 1983, and I imagine he picked up something about the profession of governing in those 32 years. But that, it seems, is not what Brooks means about the profession of governing. No, rather, he means the civic institutions, as he calls them, of political parties created to win elections and pass agendas. And he declares none of those four men has a plausible path toward winning 50.1% of the vote in any national election. They have no prospect of forming a majority coalition that can enact their policies. In other words, if you are not part of a majority, you're not part of real political life, you loser. He rather wistfully expresses his hope that maybe this is a summer squall and voters will get interested in the more traditional party candidates come autumn, the ones who could actually win majorities and govern. In other words, the Hillary Clintons, the Jeb Bushes, the we've seen this all before show of candidates chosen because they were electable only to flop, like Michael Dukakis and John Kerry, or to get elected and then turn their backs on the majority that did elect them in order to do favors for the rich and powerful, which means all the rest of them, including liberal heroes like Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, under whose administrations the wealthy have received the overwhelming majority of the benefits of economic growth, while the futures of most of us stagnated. And if you respond to those sorts of repeated betrayals by deciding you'd back someone who actually said what you thought, who actually expressed what you could support, if you supported one you figured you could actually believe in, then, according to Brooks, you've created a cult of personality, because people like Bernie Sanders are not really about governing. They are tools for their supporters' self-expression, and what, I'm still quoting Brooks here, and what sociologists call expressive individualism. Put another way, support for Bernie Sanders is a sign of the breakdown of the American community. But still another way, if you don't support the official, establishment-blessed, party-approved, electable candidate, then according to David Brooks, there's something wrong with you. And supporting candidates you believe in, as opposed to those who will turn their backs on you, is a sign of some sort of mental dysfunction. Now, there is a dysfunction here, but it surely is not ours. And David Brooks, who wrapped up his column by wishing for, and he actually did this, wishing for, quote, a sensible Donald Trump, unquote. David Brooks has made it clear to one and all that he is a clown. All right, from there to our other regular weekly feature. This is the Outrage of the Week. The Pentagon has just released a new version of its Law of War manual. It's been updated to apply to all branches of the U.S. military. That's the first time that's been done. And it pulls together all international laws on war applicable to the U.S. military, and it's designed to be a reference manual for the military in dealing with the rules of war. And the manual includes a vaguely worded provision that would allow local commanders to treat journalists as unprivileged belligerents, a variation of that weasel phrase, unlawful combatant. And they can be treated as unprivileged belligerents if such a journalist is believed to be sympathizing or cooperating with the enemy. And experts in military law and journalism say military commanders could interpret this broadly, making journalists subject to some local commander's take on international law. A person deemed an unprivileged belligerent is not entitled to the rights afforded by Geneva Convention as a prisoner of war, so a commander could restrict them from certain areas. They could even indefinitely hold them without charges if the commander considers that reporter to be such an unprivileged belligerent. The Defense Department officials said that the reference to unprivileged belligerent was intended to point out that terrorists or spies could be masquerading as journalists. Well, duh, but it doesn't say that. Another provision here says that relaying of information could be construed as taking a direct part in hostilities. Now, officials said that's intended to refer to passing on to an enemy information about location of troops or other classified data, or acting as for example, as an artillery spotter. But again, It doesn't say that. Army Lieutenant Colonel Joe Sowers, a Pentagon spokesman, said it was not the Defense Department's intent to allow an overzealous commander to block journalists or take action against those who write critical stories. But this has already happened, and long before there was a manual telling some overzealous commander that relaying of information which he or she doesn't want sent out is a justification for a journalist to be accused of taking a direct part in hostilities. Or of another provision, spying, sabotage, or similar acts. In fact, journalists working for the Associated Press and other news organizations have been detained or thrown out of their embed arrangements with the military for stories, video, or photographs that the military found unflattering. During the Iraq War, the U.S. military detained several Iraqi journalists, some of whom worked for established international news outfits like AP, Reuters, and AFP. Now, ultimately, fortunately, all of them were released without charges, but one of them, Pulitzer Prize-winning photographer Bilal Hussein, was held for 2 years. Reporters Without Borders called the language of this document dangerous, while others in the media used terms like threatening, disturbing, speculative, and hostile. Oh, but don't worry, the manual also has helpful suggestions as to how journalists can avoid being dumped into some version of Gitmo because some overzealous commander takes a dislike to their reporting. First, they should always gain permission for their reporting from relevant authorities. And second, they should submit all their relevant work to military authorities for review and censorship, so the military has total control over what news gets out to the public, which I'm sure the Pentagon would regard as the best of all possible worlds, and which dream is an outrage, as is this manual. All right, we're going to wrap up very quickly with something very simple here. It is, again, something to do once in a great while. You might call it the statistic of the week or saying it with numbers or something like that. Amid all the accusations of the Black Lives Movement being responsible for open warfare on law enforcement, even now as we get treated to the front paging of any shooting of a cop, consider this. Last year, 47 police officers were shot and killed in the line of duty. At the pace established so far this year we will see 43, that is fewer police shot and killed in the line of duty this year than last year. Meanwhile, in 2013, the last year on record, 126 police officers committed suicide, 3 times as many as those as were shot and killed. All right, I guess I'm just going to wrap up there. I'm just going to leave that there. So for the moment, I'm just going to tell you that, again, reactions to the show, be sure to send them to me, whoviating@aol.com. But for the moment, have the best week you possibly can. We'll see you next week. And for now, as always, peace.